Let's start talking about the show. Why don't we start with the top two matches of the card? One was the main event, and the other was actually the main event. That makes sense. And we're going to start with the one that was the main event. How about that? We'll get that out of the way, where Mistico defeated Chris Jericho. This match was not good. I am sorry to report. I think it's getting trashed a lot online. I think that, people are calling it, people are saying like it's an unholy mishmash of stuff, but people are saying it's just like the worst thing ever. There's worse matches, but that doesn't mean that this is excusable. And I don't think it was good. I think it's a very mediocre match. Both Jericho and Mistico in this match didn't perform. It was slow. I don't think they had any chemistry at all. I don't think they had any proper understanding of what they wanted to do. I think this is just what I think. I think Chris Jericho was coming in here to do his type of match, but CMLL Arena Mexico specifically being Mistico's house, he should have been like, no, you're playing by my rules. This is how we're doing it here. I'm the guy here. Now, I inherently didn't have a problem with Chris Jericho being on this card. And I know tons of people poo-pooed on it, called it out, said, oh, here we go, Chris Jericho putting himself into a main event again. Now, I know it's very fashionable to be a Chris Jericho hater online. I know it's super fashionable, but as I've learned, because of reading, because of talking to people, listening to conversations, as opposed to just reacting and shutting down to everything, Chris Jericho's history with CMLL is significant. It is the place where he went to, spent 3 years in CMLL? He spent 3 years in CMLL developing himself to become the wrestler that would lead him to success. What was he doing before that? He was, wrestling in Stampede, he was, that took him nowhere. And, what was he, tag teaming, with Lance Storm? Oh boy. It's like he decided to pack up and go to Mexico for a couple of years. And he worked in CMLL, right? And they love him there. And he's part of the fabric of CMLL. I don't know if you know about Arena Coliseo, which is the other arena that CMLL runs. It's smaller, smaller venue. They have, if you've seen footage of the Saturday shows, you know what I'm talking about, the Saturday CMLL shows. They have banners and posters of all of the legends and great acts of CMLL, of the history of the company, all hung around that arena, right? And Chris Jericho is there. Because from what I understand from reading Lucha Blog, look, I'm not hiding behind, strange, eldritch conversations that I've had with people. You can head on over to luchablog.com and read the exact same stuff that I am and educate yourself on this stuff. Get some of that knowledge into you. No one out there, I think, does better reporting than Cubs fan in regards to Lucha Libre, at least not in English. Cubs was saying that when it comes to guys like Chris Jericho for CMLL, they take a point of pride here in him, in that kind of situation where the guy comes to their promotion to learn how to wrestle. And then from there, they go off and have a great international career. So for them, it's a point of pride to say they came to us to learn how to wrestle. And once unleashed onto the world, they became this international superstar. And that's, thanks to us. And Chris Jericho in his books has always talked very highly of CMLL and his experience in CMLL. Like, he loves the place. So I didn't have an issue with this match happening. And in fact, I'm kind of like, oh, this is interesting. You know, ships passing in the night when it comes to Jericho and Mistico. An international star coming in to fight Mexico's superstar. Like, okay, I'm very interested in this. Like, it had some good beats to it, and I was like, maybe this will be like just something tremendous, right? Turns out I was wrong. Turns out, like I said earlier, what we ended up getting was a very, very mediocre match where two guys were just trying to do things each on their side. And I think the right thing would have been to have Mistico just do Mistico things and Chris Jericho be on the receiving end of things. I don't think he needed to make this a Chris Jericho match. I don't think he needed to land his shit in necessarily. I feel like, you wrestle the top dog. You'd wrestle Hogan in the 80s, right? You'd wrestle Hogan in the 80s. Well, you're wrestling Hogan's match. Do you know what I mean? I'm drawing this comparison here because I think it makes sense. Mistico has a style. Like, he has a formula, just like any top guy does. He has a formula. Hogan had a formula where he'd start off the match hot, get some licks in, and then the heel would do something dastardly to get in control, and he would have one long control segment. You'd pepper in some hope spots in there until finally Hogan mounts his comeback, hulks up, does the point thing, beats him down, leg drop, then Hogan must pose. That was essentially the formula. This was the formula for Mistico. That is the well, it's not the same formula, but Mistico also has a formula that is very similar in intent as opposed to it being similar as to how they're executed, but it's similar in intent. And I think, Cubs fan pondered that maybe Mistico was thrown off because Jericho was trying to do stuff, which is possible. But look, it really went both ways here. It was a hodgepodge, but both had their parts and responsibilities to delivering this very, very uninspired, disappointing match. But man, look, I've got to ask the question, and I think the time has come to have some serious conversations about this. Is Chris Jericho the in-ring performer washed? Is he done? I praise his character work, the way he can keep himself over just when you think you're writing him off. You're saying this is boring. It's finally time. Send him to the glue factory. He somehow finds a way to get back on top of things. Somehow he manages to do that. But his last AEW pay-per-view performances have not been great. They've been part of the conversation for some of the worst matches on the card. His last wasn't it the Forbidden Door? Like his last match, right? He was at All In, right? Against Hook. Well, on Cage Match, it's the worst rated match of the show, if I'm not mistaken. It's tied with Mercedes Moné versus Dr. Britt Baker. They are both at 4.38 stars. He had a fun little outing at Forbidden Door, which was the trios match. His gang and Jeff Cobb versus Hook, Katsuyori Shibata, and Samoa Joe. Then he had the three-way match, the hardcore three-way match at Double or Nothing, which was the worst match of the show. Then he had the match at Dynasty, the match against Hook, that hardcore match, which was absolutely a bad match, and was the worst match of the show. Same thing, and look, like, he's not alone here, but it's the same thing. He's in the number one contendership scramble, right? That Wardlow won. He's in there too. And it's the second worst rated match on the show. And so on and so forth. Am I seeing a pattern here? Am I seeing a pattern? Maybe we need to come to grips with the fact that Chris Jericho, entertaining, a very good pro wrestling entertainer, but maybe the days of Chris Jericho, good pro wrestler, are behind us. His record, his track record for 2024 has not been great. And I think just the idea of him being able to get himself over again when people were demanding that he retire, the fact that he was able to get himself over again via the learning tree stuff is, adding a layer of concealer to the acne of his matches. How about that? How about that for some imagery, for an analogy? Or is it a metaphor? No, it's an analogy, right? Right. I'm the English major. I decide. So anyway, but that's a sidebar, because the match itself, I don't have many notes about it, because, I thought even down to the La Mística, it looked horrible. Like nothing is working, nothing is connecting. But the decision to run an AEW angle after the show, that was weird. That was really, really weird. And I can't say I was sitting there going, hell yeah, clapping my hands. I was like, this is bizarre. Especially because Orange Cassidy ran out. And Orange Cassidy, earlier in the night, was a Rudo. Like, he was not a fan favorite. And yet here, he's coming in to save Mistico and then does the endorsement, by putting the sunglasses on. And I'm like, this is fucking Mistico. He should be endorsing you. He should be giving Orange Cassidy a mask and putting that. It shouldn't be the other way around. It's so weird. The fact that this went is strange. Like, CMLL, think about it this way. CMLL accepted that a guest promotion on their show, not on a co-branded pay-per-view, right? That they're a guest on their show. They agreed that a guest on their show could run an angle on the aftermath of the main event of their biggest show of the year. I'm sure there's a bunch of comparisons that are popping into your mind, like, what if X did Y, right? Like, that is if to say, what if, at the end of WrestleMania 41 this year, Naomichi Marufuji ran in and attacked Cody Rhodes. And, then Cody Rhodes was saved by, Kaito Kiyomiya. And then the blow off between those two would happen on a Noah show. It's all kind of weird. It's all kind of bonkers. It's weird because AEW never promoted the show. Like, they never said Chris Jericho heading over to CMLL to fight Mistico. Like, they never promoted the show. They only mentioned that this happened on Collision and on social media through a video package recapping what happened, that recapped it in a way to present like Jericho had defeated Mistico. I think, since this was a 2 out of 3 falls match, I think they being the editors, they didn't watch the show. They saw that Jericho had Mistico tap out in the walls, and they're like, oh, Jericho won, so here are the notes. But no one paid attention. No one watched the show. No one even went on the internet to see. No one followed, Rob Viper or Lucha Blog on their social media accounts to see what was going on. Like, at the very least, that they see this and they just throw. So they saw that, they put the video together, and they have Tony Schiavone talking over it as if Chris Jericho had won. You know? Now listen, I want to make something clear here. I don't have an issue with AEW coming in and asking to do this. And that's just business. You go into a thing and how far can we go? Can we do this? Yes. Can we do this? Sure. Can we do this? Maybe not. Oh, well, that's fine because we can do this and this, right? What was argued here? What was the, like, was it Tony Khan who sat down with, I don't know, the Salazar? Like, first of all, who did they, I don't know, Rocky? I was like, look, I've already got 2 of my guys losing on the night. We could do this. But yeah, sure, Tony, but this is our main event. We're not running an angle for your silly TV tapings for a match that's going to have a blow off on Dynamite in a couple of days after Mistico wins a match. And what are you negotiating? You are a guest there. Like, it's very strange. Like, I can see AEW coming in and negotiating and, you know, and being a hard negotiator, saying, look, we helped you out with your women's title situation. We sent you our girl. She's been carrying it around. We've been doing good on that. She's losing tonight. I got Orange Cassidy that we flew in. He's on the losing team tonight. That's fine. You know, you got to give me this. You know, we're good partners. And maybe they're just like, yeah, that's right. You are good partners. Maybe we could do this. But it's still a dumb decision. And the dumb decision ultimately ends up into CMLL's hand. Like, they are the ones who are entirely responsible for this. If AEW is coming in and is making all sorts of requests, as they should, I don't have a problem with that. Asking things, can we do this? Can we do this? Can we do this? That's fine. But for CMLL to just go letting this pass, for saying, yeah, this is a good idea, let's do it, they're the only ones to be held responsible here. You know, the arena was emptying out during a Mistico match. Let me say that again. The arena was emptying out during a Mistico match. I don't know what to tell you. This was somewhat of a disaster. I gave this 2.25 stars. We're very close. We were very close to bad territory. Very close.